Hey, I'm Patrick Brannon. You might know me as Mr. Patrick. I'm the Outreach Education Specialist at the Highlands Biological Station. And today we're going to be talking about snakes. Now, snake belongs to a group of animals called reptiles. Other reptiles include lizards, turtles, and alligators. Of course, we don't have alligators in our mountains, but we do have a few snakes, a few lizards, and a few turtles. So what makes something a reptile? Well, all reptiles, there's lots of things that make them a reptile, but all reptiles have scales. This is some snake skin. And if you look close, all those little circle things on there are individual scales. What are scales? Well, they're just a type of skin, but it's very thick skin. It's kind of like our fingernails, but it's all over the animal's body. So, where did I get this snake skin? Did the animal die? Well, reptiles shed their skin from time to time. How often do you think they shed? Once a day? Once a week? Once a year? Well, there's really no answer to this. The skin is like their clothes. So when you're a little kid, you probably had to get clothes quite often because you grew a lot. As you get older, unless they get heavy or you wear out your clothes, you don't have to get them very often. So a snake sheds its skin every time it goes through a growth spurt. So when it's little, it sheds frequently. When it's older, it doesn't shed so much, unless it's eating a lot and growing a lot. Snakes also have scales covering their eyes. Some people think of snakes as being just legless lizards, and they're related to lizards, but they have a lot of differences besides the absence of legs. And one of them is that they don't have eyelids. So if you look on this snake skin, you can see that it has scales that cover its eyes like swimming goggles. So lots of times people come to the nature center and they ask, well, why isn't the snake moving? Well, they don't move all the time. But even so, maybe it's asleep. And they say, well, it can't be asleep. His eyes are open. But that's exactly right. Snakes don't have eyelids, so they sleep with their eyes open. But these scales shed off along with the rest of the skin. There's some other things that make them reptiles too. Where did little baby snakes come from? Baby turtles, baby lizards. Well, most of them hatch from eggs, but reptile eggs are very different from bird eggs. And very different from frog eggs. Frogs and salamanders are what we call amphibians. We'll talk about that in a future program. But reptiles, like birds, have eggs with shells. But reptile eggs are leathery. Bird eggs are hard. You can drop a chicken egg on the ground when you're making a cake and it'll bust apart. Reptile eggs are leathery, soft-shelled eggs. They're like your shoe. So that's why this one is still intact. This egg is already hatched, but the snake can't peck his way, chip his way out like a bird can. Instead, it has to slice through that leathery shell. So if you look closely, you should be able to see a little slice where the snake has taken his egg tooth and sliced his way out. However, not all snakes lay eggs. Some of them, now they don't give birth like a mammal does, or a cow or a dog or something like that. But they don't all lay eggs either. So things like copperheads and rattlesnakes, but also garter snakes and water snakes, have a form of live birth. They keep their eggs inside their body, and they hatch inside the mother, and then the babies come out. So there is no such thing as a rattlesnake or copperhead egg. If you find a bunch of snake eggs, it's from a non-venomous snake. And there's some other things that make them reptiles too. So what we're going to be doing is looking at a snake and talking about some of his adaptations, some of the things he has to help him survive. Many of you might be like me and love snakes, but many of you may also hate snakes. Well, the goal of this program is not to make you love snakes, but hopefully you can better understand snakes and see that they're misunderstood creatures, and for the most part, not something you have to fear. So, let me get out my snake. Now I will say this snake is a pet snake. I've had him for quite a long time. In fact, He's over 25 years old, if I can get him out of the bag. There we go. Do any of you know what kind of snake this is? Well, he's called a king snake. King snakes don't occur very often in the mountains, but we do get them from time to time. They're more commonly found in the Piedmont and coastal plain in North Carolina. Why do you think they call him a king snake? Well, he's given the title of king of the snakes because he eats lots of things: mice, birds, eggs, but he also eats other snakes, including venomous species. He's immune to the venom. So he's a very good snake to have around because he can help keep away venomous species. Now, as I said, we don't have a lot of king snakes here in our mountains. Instead, we have a cousin to the king snake called the milk snake. That's kind of a grayish snake with little brownish squares on the back and a white Y on the back of their head. But like the king snake, they also eat other snakes, including venomous species. This one's name is BB, so he's BB king snake. If you look closely, what do you see that he's doing with his tongue? He's sticking it out, right? Why does he do that? Is he making fun of you? Is he going, nah, 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 nah? He actually is sensing things with his tongue. As I said, he doesn't have eyelids, and his vision is kind of poor. He can see, but not very well. Likewise, snakes can't hear. Now, lizards can hear. They have little ear holes, but snakes do not. They just feel vibration. So his hearing is not very good, and his eyesight is not very good. So he uses his tongue. He smells with his tongue. Now, does that sound right? Do you smell with your tongue? Do you see a pretty flower and lick it? Well, smell and taste are very, very similar. If your mom's baking cookies, you might smell the cookies and can almost taste it. Your mouth will start to water. Or if you have a really disgusting medicine, you might pinch your nose when you take it so you don't taste it as bad. So what this snake does is he flicks his tongue out, little things stick to his tongue, and he brings it back up into his head to smell. That's one reason they have a forked tongue. Okay, so he senses his environment mainly through the sense of smell. So he'll go and hunt, like I said, for birds and mice, but before he eats them, he has to kill them first. This type of snake is a constrictor, as are many other kinds of snakes. So when they see their prey, they'll grab it, they'll wrap their bodies around it, and they squeeze it until it's dead. So when they're squeezing it, what do you think they're doing? Are they crushing it like a soda can? Actually not. He's not that strong, but he can grip it tight enough to choke the mouse so the mouse can't breathe. So he kills it that way, and once it's dead, then he'll eat it. But a mouse is pretty big. He could even eat something as big as maybe a chipmunk. But look at the size of his head. How is that going to fit inside his mouth? Does he take bites out of it like an apple? Well, he does have little teeth, but they're not for chewing. They're just for grabbing things because he doesn't have hands. So instead, he swallows the mouse whole. But how does it fit down his throat whole? Well, snakes have the amazing ability to open their mouths really, really wide. If you opened your mouth as wide as you could, you might be able to stick maybe an egg or a lemon inside your mouth. But if you were a snake, you could open your mouth so wide you could shove a watermelon down your throat. So they have a really fancy jaw. Some people say that it comes apart. It doesn't do that. They don't dislocate their jaw. But they do have a very special hinge that allows them to open it really, really wide, and their skin is stretchy. Their jaw doesn't just open wide this way, it also opens wide side to side. Feel your chin. Yours is solid bone, but theirs is not. Theirs is like a wishbone, so it can open sideways as well as up and down. All right, so eventually he's going to get that thing and put it in his mouth and try to swallow it. So if you were trying to swallow a watermelon, Do you think you could just go, oh, and swallow it straight down? Or would it take a while? It would take a while, right? Well, the same is true for the mouse going down the snake's mouth. It's going to take him several minutes or more, depending on how it gets it, to go down his throat. So how does he avoid choking to death? If you shoved an apple in your mouth, you would have difficulty swallowing it and you couldn't breathe. So what does he do? Does he just hold his breath for like 10 minutes? He can't do that. And he can't just breathe into his nose because the mouse is in his mouth. So let's think about it. The reason you can't breathe when you're swallowing is because your windpipe is down in your throat, where the food is. Well, he's got that problem solved. A snake's windpipe is not in his throat. It's in his mouth. It actually sticks out from under his tongue like a snorkel, so he can stick it out and breathe while he's also swallowing. Eventually, he'll get the mouse down, and it'll go down his body, down to his stomach. Inside a snake's body, he has all the same organs that you and I have. He has a heart and lungs and stomach and all that stuff. But he swallowed the whole mouse, including the fur and the bones. So what happens to that stuff? Well, things like owls cough it back up. Snakes do not. Their stomach acids can even dissolve the bone. The only thing that comes out when he goes to the bathroom is the fur. So where does he go to the bathroom? Does he have a bottom? He does. If this was a lizard, you could tell where his bottom was. It would be where his back legs are and where his tail begins. So if you follow his body down, I can get him undone here. Right down here is his bottom, right there where my thumb is. So what does that mean everything below that is? That's his tail. So his legs would be here, and this is his little short tail. And on some species of snakes, like the king snake, you can tell if it's a boy or a girl by the shape of his tail. Boys have long tails, and girls have short tails. So he's got kind of a long, skinny tail, so it's a boy. Does he have bones in his body? Look at him bend all around. Can he do that with bones? He does have bones. Snakes are vertebrates, so they have a backbone. It's not like an earthworm. In fact, snakes have lots of bones. That's what makes them so bendy. This is a snake's skeleton, and you can see all the bones. It's kind of like a beaded necklace. It twists all around. Okay. Anyway, the king snake is this black snake with these yellowish or whitish markings on it. Sometimes they're more speckled than this too. And as I said, I got this almost 25 years ago. Now don't think because he's being friendly that you can just go picking up snakes in the wild. As I said, I've had him a long time and he's used to being handled. Why shouldn't you just pick up a snake in the wild? What would happen? He would bite you, right? Why would he do that? Is he trying to eat you? No, he's not trying to eat you. Is he just mean? Is he trying to attack you for fun? No. He's scared. So if you don't want to be bitten by a snake, leave it alone. People who get bitten are usually people trying to pick it up or poke it at it with a stick, or they accidentally step on the snake. Otherwise, snakes want to be left alone. They're no different from any other animal. If you tried to pick up a squirrel, it would probably bite you too. So leave them alone and they'll leave you alone. All right, I'm going to put him back in the bag temporarily. Maybe. Is that cooperating? Get in here. I couldn't get him in there. I had the bag upside down. There we go. He doesn't live in this bag. That's just what I carry him around in. So in our mountain regions, we only have a dozen or so kinds of snakes. It depends on what elevation you are. As you go down the mountain, you might pick up a few other snakes we don't have way up here. But in our mountains, there are only 2 kinds of snakes that are venomous. Only 2. We have timber rattlesnakes and copperheads. Those are the only 2 venomous species of snakes. Let me say that one more time. These are the only 2. Many people think that we have cottonmouth water moccasins here, but we do not. We have snakes that live in the water. They're called northern water snakes. You might see them in the rivers and the lakes and the ponds around here, but they are not venomous. Cottonmouth water moccasins live in the eastern part of the state, towards the beach. So these are the only 2 venomous species, timber rattlesnakes and copperheads. Both of those are what we call vipers. And the vipers are very easy to tell apart. Copperheads and rattlesnakes have really, really wide heads, like shovels. Imagine this is the handle, and that's the end of the shovel. Whereas non-venomous species, like garter snakes or the king snake, just have kind of rounded head. I don't like to use the word triangular or diamond-shaped heads because even that one's kind of pointy. I like to use shovel-shaped heads, like the ace of spades. They have a big head like that because they have venom. So instead of constricting, squeezing the mouse to death, they bite it and inject venom and wait for it to die. Okay? Some other things though, now you wouldn't normally look at a snake's eyes, but if you had a dead snake, you could look at their faces. You can see a copperhead or a rattlesnake have these eyes that look like a cat's, little slits. But non-venomous snakes have round pupils. Pit vipers, like copperheads and rattlesnakes, also have these pits. These are heat-sensing pits, so they can hunt in the dark and feel the warmth of a mouse. That's one reason they have eyes like that as well. Okay, so those are 3 things to tell them apart: the fat head, the cat eye, and the pit. So let's try it out ourselves. Here are 2 snake heads, snake A and snake B. Which one do you think would be a copperhead? A. Remember, it's shaped like a shovel. Let's look at 2 faces here. We have snake A and snake B. Which one do you think would be the rattlesnake? It would be B, the big fat head, cat eyes, and the heat-sensing pits. So it's pretty easy to tell them apart. So let's take a look at a real snake heads. These have been preserved in plastic here. So the one on top, that would be a rattlesnake. You can see the really big fat head. And down there would be some non-venomous species. And if you look at it from the side, okay, you can see it has the fangs for injecting venom, the squinty eye, the heat-sensing pit, which this one does not have. Okay, so they're pretty easy to tell apart. But unfortunately, lots of people kill snakes for no reason, especially ones that are non-venomous. They pose no threat at all. So use those things to keep them in mind. Rattlesnakes are easy to tell because they have rattles. Copperheads are the ones that people get more confused about because there are lots of snakes that are non-venomous but have a banding pattern, like the water snakes, corn snakes, milk snakes. But the copperhead is the only one whose pattern looks like this. Okay? The copperhead is copper colored, brownish, but they have dark brown hourglass shaped bands. Not squares, zigzags, diamonds. They're shaped like an hourglass. But mainly go by the shape of the head, and that will tell you. Okay? So that's a little introduction to the snakes of our region. Hope that you learned some stuff. hope you gain a greater appreciation for snakes and maybe won't fear them as much, or at least recognize those that are dangerous versus those that are not. I'll be doing more programs in the future. Until then, please visit our website at highlandsbiological.org for more information about what's going on at the station. And I hope to see you soon.